Tobela le amogetše go Leihlo la Sechaba lebitso la ka ke nna Lethabo le Joy la ga Mathato. Go gweba ka batho go bonwa bjalo ka bokgoba bja sejwalejwale. Go gweba ka batho lefase ka bophara ka maikemišetšo a go ba dira bašomi ba tefo ya fase ba bangwe ba dirišwa go gweba ka mmele ga mmogo le go ipha ngwana yeo e sego wa gago ka tsela ya molao. Good evening. Tonight we focus on the increasing crime of human trafficking.
Go gweba ka batho ba tloswang dibakeng tsa mahae go ya ditoropong. Madiboho a seng tlasa taolo, tlhokeho ya mosebetsi le bofuma. Ana ke a mang a mabaka a etsang hore Afrika Borwa e be e nngwe ya dinaha tse nang le palo e hodimo ya go gweba ka batho. Raporoto e lekolang ho gweba ka batho e bolela hore Afrika Borwa e lenaneng la dinaha tse lepueng lefatsheng ka bophara.
South Africa, in fact, is now one of the top 30 trafficking organizations in the world.
Majority of our cases emanate from social media because that's the cheapest form of communication.
These syndicates are using different methods and they're becoming more sophisticated in how they are actually taking their victim.
Raporoto e lekolang ho gweba ka batho e supa hore batho ba bangata ba fetwa diphofu ka lebaka la tlhokeho ya mosebetsi, mme boholo ba palo ena ke batjha. Maqulwana a gwebang ka batho a rekisa bana ba banana ho tloha ho dilemo tse ka bang 10 bakeng sa diketso tsa motabo. Professor Philip Frankel o ngotse buka e manollang bothata ba ho gweba ka batho ya sehloho se reng Human Trafficking in South Africa. Mme yona e phatlaladitswe ke Human Science Research Council. Setsebi sena se fupuditse sehloho sena ka dilemo tse ka bang 10. O boetse ke mongodi wa buka e sehloho se reng Long Walk to Nowhere. Re ikopanya le yena ho utlwisisa botebo ba bothata bo re nang le bona.
Trafficking is a very, very underground activity. That's the first thing. The second thing is we don't have a reporting culture in South Africa where people, for example, will see trafficking and report it to law enforcement.
Marangrang a dikgokehelano tsa setjhaba ke se seng sa disebediswa tse matla tse sebediswang ke disenyi ho hohela diphofu.
It's hard to say. I mean, we had human trafficking in this country long before we had social media. I mean, if you want to talk about trafficking, you're talking basically about slavery.
Lekala le ikgethileng la sepolesa e leng di-Hawks le fuputsa bosenyi bona tsatsing le tjhabang le le dikelang.
Majority of our cases emanate from social media because that's the cheapest form of communication between the perpetrators and the victims. Because usually it is an advert. You answer an advert and they say to you, no, let's go to WhatsApp. And then for most of these one that we call online scams, no, I've seen your Facebook profile and and then it goes on for a long time. Unawares, wena you are divulging a lot more than you should, because majority of people, their life are online.
Maemo ao batho ba phelang tlasa ona setjhabeng le moruo o fokolang di mpefatsa maemo.
There are a lot of things. One, of course, is the massive economic inequalities in this country, the joblessness, because that creates a pool of victims of desperate people who will get into relationships which will turn out to be trafficking or slave trading, if you want relationships. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we have very, very long borders in this country, both landward borders and also maritime borders, which are very, very poorly patrolled, partially because of their length and partially because there is a very high level of police complicity with trafficking cartels. That is something which we're trying to address now.
Re na le di category tse pedi. Go na le di pull factors le di push factors. Di pull factors ke tse leng gore batho ba thopang batho ba di dirisa jaaka gore ba o fitlhela o bona di advert tse leng gore madi a teng a go godimo ba tla go patella bonno ba tla go patella sele le sele o fitlhela gore ga o calculator gore ga ke kra bokana ke ntsha sele le sele le sele ke sala ka tšhelete ntsi thata ke tsone tseo ke bo employment ina le bo di greener pastures.
Professor Frankel o re ho hweba ka batho ho na le tjhelete e ngata.
My feeling, which not everybody would agree with, is that the great majority of trafficking transactions are small-scale, opportunistic transactions, small groups of people who work to traffic. You've got to understand, trafficking is a very lucrative form of activity. It's the most lucrative crime that there is. It even exceeds, in terms of its returns, drug trafficking.
Colonel Mogale o re batho ba bang ba rekiswa ka hare ho naha diprofenseng ha ba bang ba tlhodiswa meedi.
Lately re fitlhetse le gore le batswantle ba leng gore ba tlile mo ba tla mo ba bitswa ke ba ga bone ga ba fitla mo ka ntone ke botse ke go bolela yone ke re ke pull effect ba tla mo ba ithare ba tlo kra mmereko o patelang sentle ba tla khona go romela madi gae ba na le bonno everything e ba advertising ba e utlwa ba e bona gore re ka itshwara ka satla until they come through.
South Africa, in fact, is now one of the top 30 trafficking organizations in the world, and the region is moving into the top 10.
Dipalopalo di bontsha hore batho ba hlokang mosebetsi mona Afrika Borwa ke dipersente tse 33. Boholo ba palo ena ke batjha.
If you wanted to isolate one thing, I would say it's the unemployment, it's the poverty, it's the sheer desperation of people, particularly young people, to have some form of employment, gainful employment. And that creates this group of people, a very big group of people, who, when approached by traffickers, find that they've been fraudulently recruited and they're now being trafficked.
Taba e nngwe e hlobaetsang ke palo ya bana ba lahlehang. Ebe phapang ke eng pakeng tsa ho kwetelwa le ho hweba ka batho? Ha jwale mapolesa a dutse ka ditokomane tse 3,000 tsa bana ba ho sa tsejweng hore ba ho kae.
There is a difference between kidnapping and human trafficking. So if we look at kidnapping, kidnapping happens for various reasons. We've got opportunistic kidnappings, we've got kidnappings for ransom demand, We've got family and parental abductions that happen, and then also these traditional medicine kidnappings. Human trafficking is when we look at organ trafficking, we look at sexual exploitation, forced labor. So when it comes to human trafficking, it is a person that is used as a commodity, taken and also sold for a specific purpose. So that's the difference that we've seen between kidnapping and human trafficking. Unfortunately, both of them are on the rise in South Africa and a major problem that we are facing.
Matsatsing ana bana ba phela ba le go marangrang, mme maqulwana a sebedisa mekgwa e fapaneng ho ba hohela.
Unfortunately, social media also poses a danger not to our children but to us ourselves. So many children are on social media and are not monitored by their parents. So we ask parents and guardians to please monitor your children's social media use. Make sure the privacy settings are set correctly. We need to educate our children on who to accept, for instance, on Facebook, friend request, getting messages from someone that they don't know. That poses a big danger to us. Adults, again, when we look at false job advertisements, modeling contracts being advertised on social media.
Afrika Borwa e na le molao o radilweng ho thibela ho hweba ka batho. Molao ona o bitswa Act number 7 of 2013, mme o re Prevention and Combating of Trafficking in Persons. O kene tshebetsong ka 2015. Hobaneng bosenyi ba ho hweba ka batho bo ntse bo nyoloha empa ho na le molao?
Problem is that system that has been set up has failed totally and abjectly. And it's failed because there's no money budgeted for it. It's failed because of obstruction by the state bureaucracy. It's failed because people aren't buying into it. And it's failed ultimately because I think a great majority of South Africans don't believe that there is trafficking in this country.
Dr. Marcel van der Walt ke se seng sa ditsebi tse ngotseng ka bosenyi ba ho hweba ka batho.
There's pockets of excellence in the criminal justice system, and that is evident in these successful prosecutions that we are seeing. But the system as a whole has got so many crevices and cracks, and if it's not for those dedicated police investigators, prosecutors, who themselves have to navigate this garden of complexities, which is the criminal justice system, if it wasn't for those sterling individuals, the situation would have been far more dire.
Colonel Mogale o re molao ona wa sebetsa.
Re na le se re se bitsang intersectoral committee ya trafficking in persons. It's been established and it's operating. And then ko di provinceng re na le se re se bitsang the provincial rapid response teams. Le tsone ke different departments tse di kopaneng tse leng gore should it be found out gore go na le motho e leng gore is trafficking in persons, go na le di social worker, go na le di doctor, go na le di referral networks, mapodisa ga fitla ba itse gore tshwantse re founele mang, place of safety eng. Dr.
van der Walt o re bothata ba ho hweba ka batho bo tla eketseha ebang mmuso o ka etsa hore ho hweba ka mmele ho be molaong.
The government is planning to fully decriminalize the sex trade, literally making brothels legal, sex buying legal, by virtue of that, pimping third parties. That will be absolutely catastrophic. So there, in order to avert this catastrophe, we need to look at what other countries are doing.
Mekgatlo e sa etseng phaello e kang A21 e etsa matsholo lefatsheng ka bophara ho hlokomedisa le ho matlafatsa batho. The
A21 campaign was started in 2008. We are a global anti-human trafficking organization, and we have 19 offices in 14 locations around the world. So our key focus is combating human trafficking in the locations and the surrounds where we are. We really believe that we can abolish slavery everywhere forever. It's a massive goal, but that's what we are passionate about.
Baithaopi ba A21 ba sebedisana mmoho le Rhema Bible Church selemo le selemo ho etsa mohwanto o hlokomedisang setjhaba ka bothata ba ho hweba ka batho.
what you'll see is us wearing our Abolish Slavery Everywhere Forever t-shirts, holding signs, and walking in a single file, silent single file. And what we're doing is we're actually mobilizing everyday people to say, human trafficking happens in my community, but it's not going to thrive on my watch. And if I get the awareness out there for people seeing me in this walk, but also through my social media, I can use my social media for good. We're hoping to mobilize the masses to know they can be part of the fight, but also put information in the hands of community members.
When 821 approached us, we said we'd really like to partner with them to create awareness and to see how we can support and be of assistance to them.
Lebaka la gore ke be ke le mo gompieno ne le gore ke emele le ba ba sutliwang ba ba gatekelwang ba ba bolaiwang ka kganye ya go tshwara ga batho go ka go badiwa. So I'm just one of those who are against human trafficking, and ke eme mo ke re ya gana ke ema le ba ba reng ga ba batle gore re utlwile Sechaba re utlwile ya ka naga gore a e fele a e fedisiwe a mantse a rona a eme a utlwale gongwe go gore leng teng gore ba ba dirang dilo tse di maswetse ba itse gore ga di a siama di tshwanetse ke fela.
This is a crime that's quite prevalent and it's on the rise. So whilst few people may be aware of it, that's exactly what we're doing today, to create the awareness, to make them aware of the platforms that they can use to actually report such crime, which we know is affecting our children.
Hangata setjhaba se lla ka gore ho na le mapolesa a sebetsang mmoho le maqulwana. Di-Hawks di re mapolesa a sebedisanang le maqulwana a tsebe gore letsogo la molao le lelelele.
Mapodisa e leng gore a decidile gore bone ka uniform ya rona ba tshwanetse ba dirise molao ka dilo tsa bosenyi. O tshepe gore ga re ka utlwela le bone ba reportive a ile gore o itse ba bang ba leng gore ba dirisana le dikebekwatse o ba reporte le bone ba tla itse gore letsogo la molao le le kakang. Keletso e ke nang le yone mo bone ke gore one a re tlhokomeleng gore di metsamao ya batho ba o nnang le bone le batho ba o dirisanang le bone o e lemoge. When it comes to our young children ba ba leng gore ba tech savvy, ke bone ba leng gore ba mo onlineing ba batla gore le bone at some point ba ilo bereka overseas. If they do come across an advert that sounds too good to be true, it probably isn't. So but try by all means to run as much background check as they possibly can, including if you know somebody who is into IT, ba mo trace the IP address, because you'll find out that the advert is saying the job is in Switzerland for argument's sake, but that is being run from Cape Town, some back room in Cape Town or some back room in India.
I think the first thing is vigilance. I mean, if one sees something which one suspects might be a transgression of the law or a kind of trafficking situation, the first thing one should do, in fact, is not necessarily approach the police, because the police in most cases will do nothing, but approach, for example, there's a national hotline. That's the first thing. The other thing is public education. Part of the answer to that is raising community awareness through training programs. I do a lot of that. That's what I spend most of my time, in fact, doing, working with schools, working with social welfare workers, and so forth and so on. That's the way to go. It's a long-term solution.
Hopola, ho bohlokwa ho tlalela sepolesa ha o na le motho ya lahlehileng.
People are still under the impression that they have to wait 24 hours. That does not exist. Please report it immediately, as the first 24 hours to 48 hours, especially when a child goes missing, is absolutely crucial.
Proactively ke lona matlo le ditsebe tsa rona. Re tshwanetse gore ya ka ke buile gore be aware of your surroundings, be aware of your streets. I think social media has put it in a way that we no longer say dumela maki, so we never meet The only time they see me is when I get out of my yard. And if I pass somebody at the garden in the front, I don't even say hi because I might most probably be on my hands-free talking to somebody else. So we need to revive that sense of community. So that when something untoward happens, this guy every time and mokhuko o dula o khietse go khietso
ntwa kgahlanong le kgweba ka batho e tla hlolwa ebang mmuso o netefatsa hore melao e teng e kengwa tshebetsong. Sechaba le sona se lokela ho itshireletsa kgahlanong le maqulwana a sebedisang marangrang ho ntshetsa pele ho kgweba ka batho.
ke ka fa re fitla mafelong a lenaneo la rena bošegong ba lekgono e ba le rena gape bekeng e latelago mošupologo seripagare go tšwa iri ya seswae gona mo go SABC2 go bola gabotse gore o ka re ngwalela email go leihlo la setšhaba @sabc.co.za rena gape le letlaka la rena la Facebook mo e le gore o ka kgona go boledišana le rena gona mananeo wa rena ka moka a leihlo la setšhaba o kgona wa humana go YouTube go kwa ka lenaneo le latelang netefatša gore o theeletša thobela FM le Sedi FM motsweding FM mošupologo mesong ba re motšwa ga bogala ele a e be boroko.